Wisdom for honesty and legacy. Have you ever been told to share something equally, maybe food, money, etc., but because the other person couldn't verify, you quietly took just a little more? We've all been there. And yes, we still face that temptation once in a while. That brings us to today's wisdom nugget. Remove not the ancient landmark, which thy fathers have set. Proverbs 22:28, KJV. You might think, well, thank God I'm not into real estate. I've never bought land, so this doesn't apply to me. But wait a minute. This wisdom speaks both literally and figuratively. Let's begin with the literal. This verse is indeed about honesty, sincerity, and uprightness. It's about being a person of integrity, keeping your word, even when no one's watching, or when the other party isn't around. So why would God, or the wise, bother about something so subtle and seemingly minor? Because, as God told Job, the universe runs on order. Every law, principle, and boundary is in place for a reason. And our choices, even the small ones, ripple out far beyond us. They affect others, and they affect the system God carefully designed. When you shift a landmark, you're not just adjusting your portion, you're tampering with someone else's inheritance. That's injustice, and it shows a deeper moral flaw. Proverbs 13:11, CSB. The Lord loves justice and fairness. He will never abandon his people. Psalm 37:28, TLB. Now think of landmarks not just as land, but as legacy. They're often set by fathers, by people who came before us, through prayer, agreement, and wise counsel. Look at 1 Kings 21:1-15. Naboth refused to sell his vineyard because he knew it wasn't just land, it was legacy. Or Numbers 27:1-11. God made room for daughters to inherit their father's land, proving again, inheritance matters to God. Now let's zoom in on the figurative. This verse is just as relevant today when it comes to values. Some boundaries aren't physical, they're moral. Standards, convictions, codes of honor. But sadly, we often try to redefine these things in the name of being modern, woke, or enlightened. We question everything, not always from wisdom, but from feelings and convenience. Yet, Scripture calls us to respectful, diligent, and dutiful honor. Yes, we can research. Yes, we can contextualize, but not at the cost of throwing out what godly men and women laid down. Jeremiah 35:6-10 shows the sons of Rechab obeying their forefathers' command. And even if we debate whether that command was divine, one thing is clear. God honored their loyalty. God values the preservation of godly heritage. He still introduces himself as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob long after they had passed. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. Matthew 22:32. Why? Because their descendants aligned with the faith, the instructions, and the legacy they received. And that gave them access to divine relevance. So today, ask yourself, what have you modified that you shouldn't?